So today, is the first day of the Tibetan calendar, and therefore I made an offering of talk to Lama, Belden Lama. So let's say this prayer of Belden Lama, Dharma protector. Gube cha zalo gyenen dagi chebe madib kyam pandeng wa drop tamba top che chir debe yundem kala charp chebe tsoden wombo gyur che balden kyuni gedi pambo te dagi lunga yi kenye. So this prayer basically goes through what is known as the 7 limbs of prayer, making prostration to Belden Lama, and then making offerings, confessing one's misdeeds, then requesting the Buddha not to pass away and turn the wheel of Dharma or give teachings. And rejoicing in the good deeds of all beings. And finally, dedication of all these positive energies that we have gained through this first 6 practices. Volume? This one. So I have already given some general introduction to the teaching of the Buddha. So today I'll not do any introductory teaching, but we'll go through the text itself, the Bodhisattva's way of life, or a guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. So in any case, this precious human life found once, so this human life that we have found is endowed with 8 leisures and 10 endowments. Though we have found such a precious human life, we are bound to die one time. And therefore, it is very important for us to make this life meaningful. So Tibetans and the people of the Himalayan region, everyone recites the Om Mani Padme Hum 6-syllable mantra of Avalokiteshvara, the Buddha of compassion, and also Aryatara, Noble Lady Aryatara, mantra, Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Soha. So, because of our good deeds that we have done in the past, and because of having the propensity for good from the past lives, we have been born as human beings following the Dharma, and therefore it is important for us to lead a good life, to cultivate a good heart and so forth, so that we could tread the path of enlightenment, beginning with the path of accumulation, going on to path of preparation or application, and path of seeing, then path of meditation, and finally the path of no more learning, Buddhahood. So, making this life a meaningful one would be able to have a peaceful mind, peace of mind, and also a good physical health as well. And therefore, having found this precious human life, in order to make it a meaningful one, the essence of which is by cultivating bodhichitta and the wisdom of emptiness, and living a harmonious life with others. And finally, through our practice of the path, reaching that of the omniscient state of Buddhahood. So bodhicitta is the crux of the practice. If you wish to fulfill your own goal, and also the goal of fulfilling others' wishes, and also the short-term and long-term goals, bodhicitta is an incredible factor for fulfilling all of them. So we, the Tibetans, follow the Nalanda tradition of Buddhism, which has spread in Tibet. As followers of the Nalanda tradition, we have always heard about bodhicitta, this altruistic spirit of enlightenment. And with regard to a text, the most excellent text for the cultivation and study of bodhicitta, this altruistic spirit of enlightenment or awakening, is Shantideva's A Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life. So I'll read through the text. So Tibetans of the land of snows, we do take refuge in the three jewels of Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and also we make prayer to cultivate bodhicitta, this altruistic spirit of enlightenment. So even if it may be just in words, we do such practice so that we are able to acquaint our minds to these practices of taking refuge in the three jewels and cultivating bodhichitta. So this book, A Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life, of course we are going to go through it for transmission. However, on a daily basis, you should cultivate the practice of refuge, taking refuge in the three jewels, and also bodhichitta through the verse, by using the verse formula which says, I take refuge in the three jewels until I'm enlightened. May the practices of bodhichitta, the practices of generosity and so forth that I have done lead me to Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. So this is what we should do to the best of our ability. So regarding myself, I also make bodhicitta and also the understanding of emptiness my main daily practice. So we'll go through the chapter 2, disclosure of wrongdoing. So bodhicitta is something which has great benefit and advantages. So we do cultivate bodhicitta on a daily basis. In order to seize that precious mind, I offer now to the Tathagatas, to the sacred Dharma, the stainless jewel, and to the disciples of Buddha, the oceans of excellence. Whatever flowers and fruits there are, and whatever kinds of medicine, whatever jewels exist in this world, and whatever clean, refreshing waters, likewise gem-encrusted mountains, forests, groves, quiet and joyful places, heavenly trees bedecked with flowers and trees with fruit-laden branches, fragrances of celestial realms, incense, wishing trees and jewel trees, uncultivated harvest, and all ornaments that are worthy of beings offered. Lakes and pools adorned with lotuses and the beautiful cry of wild geese, everything unowned, within the limitless spheres of space. Creating these things in my mind, I offer them to the Supreme Beings, the Buddhas, as well as their children. O compassionate one, think kindly of me and accept these offerings of mine. Having no merit, I am destitute, and I have no other gifts to offer. O protector, you who think of helping others by your power, accept these for my sake. Eternally shall I offer my bodies to the conquerors and their children. Please accept me, you supreme heroes. Respectfully shall I be your subject. So you are offering your body to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And you wish to become their servants, and so that you will be able to carry out their aspirations for the benefit of others. By being Completely under your care, I shall benefit all with no fears of conditioned existence. I shall perfectly transcend my previous transgressions and in the future shall commit no more. To very sweetly scented bathing chambers with brilliantly sparkling crystal floors and exquisite pillars, ablaze with wisdom, with canopies, above aglow with pearls. I beseech the Tathagatas and their children to come and bath in their bodies from many jeweled vases filled with water, scented and enticing, to the accompaniment of music and song. Let me dry their bodies with incomparable cloths, clean and well anointed with scent, and then may I present these holy beings with fragrant garments of suitable colors. I adorned with manifold ornaments and various raiments, fine and smooth, the Arya Samandabhadra, Manjukusha, Avalokiteshvara, and all the others. Just like polishing pure, refined gold, I anoint the Buddha's forms which blaze with light, with the choicest perfumes, whose fragrance permeate 1,000 million worlds. And to the highest, verse number 15, and to the highest objects of giving I offer beautiful, well-arranged garlands, as well as enchanting, sweet-smelling flowers, such as lilies, jasmine, and lotus blooms. Also I sent forth, verse 16, I sent forth clouds of incense, whose sweet aroma steals away the mind, as well as celestial delicacies, including a variety of foods and drinks. Verse number 17, I offer them jeweled lamps arranged on golden lotus buds upon land, sprinkled with scented water. I scatter delicate flower petals. To those who have nature of compassion, I offer palaces resounding with melodious hymns, exquisitely illuminated by hanging pearls and gems that dawn with the infinities of space. Eternally I offer to all the Buddhas jeweled umbrellas with golden handles and exquisite ornaments embellished to the rim, standing erect, their shapes beautiful to behold. And in addition, may a mass of offerings resounding with sweet and pleasing music, like clouds that appease the misery of all, each remaining for as long as necessary. And may a continuous rain of flowers and precious gems descend upon the reliquaries and statues, and upon all the jewels of Dharma. In the same way as Manjukusha and others have made offerings to the conquerors, similarly do I bestow gifts upon the Tathagatas, to the protectors, their children, and all. I glorify the oceans of excellence with limitless verses of harmonious praise. May these clouds of gentle eulogy constantly ascend to their presence, with bodies as numerous as all the atoms within this universe. I prostrate to all Buddhas of the three times, the Dharma, and the Supreme Community. Likewise, I prostrate to the reliquaries, to the basis of all an awakening mind, to all learned abbots and masters, and to all noble practitioners. I seek refuge in all the Buddhas. Until I possess the essence of awakening, I seek refuge in Dharma and in the assembly of Bodhisattvas. With folded hands I beseech the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who possess the great compassion and reside in all directions throughout beginning a cyclic existence. In this life and others, unknowingly I committed transgressions and ordered them to be done by others. Overwhelmed by the deceptions of ignorance, I rejoiced in what was done. But now, seeing these mistakes, from my heart I confess to the Buddhas. So in order to do away with such ignorance, which has deceived us throughout our lifetime so far, what we need to do to counter that is to study the texts such as Nagarjuna's Mula Madhyamaka Karika and Chandrakirti's Madhyamaka Avatara and so forth. So because all our wrongdoings happen due to our ignorance, Master Chandrakirti says, we hold on to this kind of independent I, independent self, and therefore, because of that, we commit wrongdoings. And so we need to see this grasping at some kind of independent I or a self as the root of all defects. And because we hold on to I, we cherish ourselves, we also make distinction between ourselves and others and discriminate others against ourselves. And therefore we have anger and so forth towards others. Whatever harmful acts of body, speech, and mind I have done in a disturbed mental state. Verse number 30, I towards the three jewels of refuge, my parents, my spiritual masters, and others, and all the grave wrongs done by me, so thoroughly vile and polluted with an abundance of faults, I openly declare to the guides of the world. But I may well perish before all my transgressions have been purified. So please protect me in such a way as will swiftly and surely free me from them. The untrustworthy Lord of death waits not for things to be done or undone, whether I am sick or healthy. This fleeting lifespan is unstable. Leaving all, I must depart alone. Yet, through not having understood this, I committed various kinds of wrongdoings for the sake of my friends and foes. My foes will become nothing, my friends will become nothing, I too will become nothing. Likewise, all will become nothing. Just as a dream experience, whatever things I enjoy will become a memory. Whatever has passed will not be seen again. Even within this brief life, many friends and foes have passed, but whatever unbearable wrongdoing I have committed for them remains ahead of me. Thereby, through not having realized that I shall suddenly vanish, I committed so much wrong out of ignorance, lust, and hate, remaining neither day nor night. Life is always slipping away and never getting any longer. Why would death not come to one like me? So this is quite true. Verse number 40, while I'm lying in bed, although surrounded by my friends and relatives, the feeling of life being severed will be experienced by me alone. So though you may be surrounded by your lamas, gurus, or teachers and friends and families, when you die, you go alone. Nobody will accompany you. So you should practice in such a way that you will not regret at the end of your life. The practice bodhichitta, this altruistic spirit of an awakening or enlightenment, so that you may feel confident that you have nothing to regret at the end of your life. When seized by the messengers of death, what benefit will friends and relatives afford? My merit alone shall protect me then, but upon that I have never relied, O protector. Verse number 42, O protectors, I, so unconcerned, unaware of such terror as this, accumulated a great deal of negative action for the sake of this transient life. Petrified is the person, today being led to a torture chamber, with a dry mouth and dreadful, sunken eyes, his entire appearance transfigured. What need to mention the tremendous despair when stricken with the disease of great panic, being clasped by the physical forms of the frightful messenger of death? Who can afford me real protection from this great horror? With terrified, bulging eyes agape, I shall search in every direction for refuge. Upon seeing no refuge anywhere, I shall become enveloped in gloom. If there should be no protection there, then what shall I be able to do? Therefore, I now seek refuge in the Buddhas who protect the world, who strive to shelter all that lives, and with great strength eradicate all fear. Likewise, I purely seek refuge in the Dharma they have realized, clears away the fears of cyclic existence, and also in the assembly of Bodhisattvas. I, trembling with fear, offer myself to Samandabhadra, to Manjugosha. Also, I make a gift of my body to the protector of Avalokiteshvara, who infallibly acts with compassion. I utter a mournful cry, please protect this miscreant. In my search for refuge, I cry from heart for Kashagarbhas, Kittigarbha, and all the compassionate protectors. I seek refuge in Vajrapani, upon the sight of whom all harmful beings, as the messenger of death, flee in terror in all directions. Previously, I transgressed all your advice, but now, upon seeing this, with great fear, I go to you for refuge. By doing so, may this fear be swiftly cleared away. If I need to comply with the doctor's advice when frightened with a common illness, then how much more so when perpetually diseased by the manifold agitations of desire and so forth. And if all people living on this earth can overcome by just one of these, and if no other medicine can cure them is to be found elsewhere in the universe, then the intention not to act in accordance with the advice of the all-knowing physicians that can uproot every misery is extremely bewildered and worthy of scorn. If I need to be careful near a small ordinary precipice, then how much more so near the one of deep duration and that drops from 1,000 miles. So it is inappropriate to enjoy myself, thinking that today alone I shall not die, for inevitably the time will come when I shall become nothing. Who can grant me fearlessness? How can I be surely freed from this if I shall inevitably become nothing? How can I relax and enjoy myself? What remains with me now from the terminated experience of the past, yet through my great attachments to them, I have been going against my spiritual master's advice. Having departed from this life and from all my friends and relatives, if all alone I must go elsewhere, what is the use of making friends and enemies? How can I be surely freed from the unwholesomeness, the source of misery? Continuously, night and day, I should only consider this. Whatever has been done by me through the ignorance of unknowing, be it the breaking of vow or a deed by nature wrong, I humbly confess it all to the presence of protectors. With folded hands, prostrating myself again and again, my mind terrified by the misery to come, I beseech all the guides to please accept my transgressions and wrongdoings, since these are not good. In the future, I shall do them no more. So we have done the chapter 2. Jumped? Huh? He jumped. So his knowledge jumped to, I think, chapter 3, verse 20. Just as the verse number 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, and 34, Today, in the presence of all the protectors, I invite the world to be guests at the festival of Sugadhahood, Buddhahood, and in the meantime, the temporary festival of the path leading to enlightenment. May gods, anti-gods, and all be joyful. So bodhicitta is something that I cultivate on a daily basis, and it'll through this you will have a peaceful, happy life. And if you practice bodhicitta in this life, you'll be able to make yourself be able to continue this practice throughout your lifetimes in the future. And therefore, we should set our mind on Buddhahood and accordingly practice bodhicitta so that when you will be able to lead ourselves make progress along the path to enlightenment. So verse number 23 in this third chapter says, just as the previous Sugatas gave birth to awakening mind, and just as they successively dwelt in the Bodhisattva practices, likewise for the sake of all that lives do I give birth to an awakening mind, and likewise shall I too successively follow the practices, and so forth. Verse then chapter 4, having firmly conscientiousness, having firmly seized the awakening mind in this way, conquerors, children, must never waver. Always should they exert themselves to never stray from their practices. In the case of reckless actions or the deeds not well considered, although a promise may have been made, it is fit to reconsider whether I should do them or not. But how can I ever withdraw from what has been examined by the great wisdom of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and even many times by me myself? If, having made such a promise, I do not put it into action, then by deceiving every living being, what kind of rebirth shall I take? If it has been taught by the Buddha that those who do not give away the smallest thing which they once intended to give will take rebirth as hungry ghosts, then if I should deceive all beings, after having sincerely invited them to this unsurpassable bliss, shall I take a happy rebirth? Only the omniscient can discern the manner of action of those who give up the awakening mind but are freed. It is beyond the scope of ordinary thought. This, for a bodhisattva, is the heaviest of downfalls. For should it ever happen, the welfare of all will be weakened. And should others, for even a single moment, hinder or obstruct their wholesome deeds by weakening the welfare of all, there will be no end to their rebirth in lower states. For if my being is impaired by destroying the joy of even one creature, then what need is there to mention destroying the joy of creatures vast as space? Thus, those who have the force of an awakening mind, as well as the force of falling from it, stay revolving within cyclic existence and for a long time are hindered from reaching the bodhisattva levels or grounds. Therefore, just as I have promised, I shall respectfully accord my actions. If from now on I make no effort, I shall descend to lower and lower states. Although, for the benefit of every creature, countless Buddhas have passed by, I was not an object of their care because of my own mistakes. And if I continue to act like this again and again, shall I undergo suffering in unhappy realms, sickness, bondage, laceration, and the shedding of blood? If the arising of the Tathagata's faith, the attainment of human body and my being fit to cultivate virtue are scarce, when will they be won again? Although today I am healthy, well-nourished and unafflicted, life is momentary and deceptive. The body is like an object on loan but for a minute. With behavior such as this, I shall not win a human body again. And if this human form is not attained, there will be solely wrongdoing and no virtue. So verse number 28 says, although enemies such as hatred and craving have neither any arms or legs, and are neither courageous nor wise, how have I, like a slave, been used by them? Verse 29, for while they dwell within my mind at their pleasure, they cause me harm, yet I patiently endured them without any anger. But this is an inappropriate and shameful time for patience. Should even all the gods and demigods rise up against me as my enemies, they could not lead nor place me in the roaring fires of deepest hell. Yet the mighty foe, these disturbing conceptions, the mental afflictions, if in a moment can cast me amidst those flames, which, when met, will cause not even the ashes of the king of mountains to remain. So all other enemies are incapable of remaining for such a length of time as can my disturbing conceptions or mental afflictions. The enduring enemy has neither beginning nor end. So if you bow to the disturbing emotions, the mental afflictions, there's nothing but harm that you can expect from them. So if I agreeably honor and entrust myself to others, they will bring me benefit and happiness. But if I entrust myself to those disturbing conceptions, mental afflictions, in the future they will bring only misery and harm. While in cyclic existence, how can I be joyful and unafraid if in my heart I readily prepare a place for this incessant enemy of long duration, the sole cause for the increase of all that harms me? And how shall I ever be happy? How shall I ever have happiness if, in a net of attachment within my mind, there dwell the guardians of the prison of cyclic existence, the mental afflictions that become my butchers and tormentors in hell? Therefore, as long as this misery is not slain with certainty before my very eyes, I shall never give up exerting myself towards that end. Having become angry at someone who caused only slight and short-lived harm, self-important people will not sleep until their enemy is overcome. And if, while engaged in a violent battle, the vigorous desire to conquer those whose whole disturbing conceptions will naturally bring them suffering at death, men disregard the pain of being pierced by spears and arrows, and it will not withdraw until until the day is won. Then what need to mention that I should be faint-hearted and slothful, even if I am caused many hundreds of sufferings, when now I strive to definitely overcome by natural enemies. So verse number 42, 43, 44. So verse number 45, common enemies, when expelled from one country, simply retire and settle down in another. Though when their strength is recovered, they then return. However, the way of this enemy, my disturbing conceptions, is not similar in this respect. Deluded, disturbing conceptions, when forsaken by the eye of wisdom and dispelled from my mind, where will you go? Where will you dwell? In order to be able to endure me again later, weak-minded, I have been reduced to making no effort. If these disturbing conceptions do not exist within the objects, the sense organs, between the two or elsewhere, then where do they exist and how do they harm the world? They are like an illusion. Thus, I should dispel the fear within my heart and strive resolutely for wisdom, for not No real reason why should I suffer so much in hell. And then verse number 48 done. And next, chapter 5. So verse number 48, the final verse of chapter 4 says, therefore, having thought about this well, I should try to put these precepts into practice just as they have been explained. If the doctor's instructions are ignored, how will a patient in need of cure be healed by the medicines? I think His Holiness jumped certain verses in chapter 3, which Yangde Rinpoche pointed out, and he's reading through those few verses. I told you he jumped. So His Holiness is reading what he missed earlier in chapter 3. This is chapter 4. So chapter 5, those who wish to guard their practice should very attentively guard their minds, for those who do not guard their minds will be unable to guard their practice. In this world, unsubdued and crazed elephants are incapable of causing such harms as the miseries of the deepest hell, which can be caused by the unleashed elephant of my mind. However, if the elephant of my mind is firmly bound on all sides by the rope of mindfulness, all fears will cease to exist, and all virtues will come into my hand. Tigers, lions, elephants, bears, snakes, and all forms of enemies, the guardians of the hell worlds, evil spirits, and cannibals, will all be bound by binding my mind alone, and will all be subdued by subduing my mind alone. The perfect teacher himself has shown that in this way all fears as well as all boundless miseries originate from the mind, who intentionally created all the weapons for those in hell, who created the burning iron ground, from where did all the women in hell ensue. So there's nothing like our mental afflictions, the disturbing conceptions that can harm us. The Mighty Ones has said that all such things are workings of negative mind. Hence, within the three world spheres, there is nothing to fear other than my mind. If the perfection of generosity were the alleviation of world's poverty, then since beings are still starving now, in what manner did the previous Buddha perfect it? The perfection of generosity is said to be The thought of to give all beings everything, together with the fruit of such thought. Hence, it is with simply a state of mind. Nowhere has the killing of fish and other creatures been eradicated for the attainment. Merely the thought to forsake such things is explained as a perfection of moral discipline. Unruly beings are unlimited as space. They cannot possibly all be overcome. However, if I overcome thoughts of anger alone, this will be equivalent to vanquishing all foes. Where would I possibly find enough leather with which to cover the surface of the earth? Yet wearing leather just on the soles of my shoes is equivalent to covering the earth with it. Likewise, it is not possible for me to restrain the eternal course of things. But should I restrain my mind, what would be the need to restrain all else? Although the development of merely a clear state of concentration can result in taking birth in Brahma's realm, physical and vocal actions cannot so result when accompanied by weak mental contact. The knower of reality has said that even if recitation and physical hardships are practiced for long periods of time, they will be meaningless if the mind is distracted elsewhere. Even those who wish to find happiness and overcome misery will wander with no aim or nor meaning if they do not comprehend the secret of the mind, the paramount significance of the dharma. This being so, I shall hold and guard my mind well. Without the discipline of guarding the mind, what use are many other disciplines? Just as I would be attentive and careful of a wound when amidst a bustling, uncontrolled crowd, so I should always guard the wound of my mind when dwelling among harmful people. If I am careful of a wound through fear of it being slightly hurt, then why do I not guard the wound of my mind through fear of being crushed by the mountains of hell? Should I behave in such a way as this? Then whether among harmful people or even in the midst of women, the steady effort of to control myself will not decline. It is better to be without wealth, honor, body, and livelihood. And it is better to let other virtues deteriorate rather than ever to let the virtues of mind decline. O you who wish to guard your minds, I beseech you, with folded hands, always exert yourself to guard mindfulness and alertness. So you should always think of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas looking upon you and avoid all wrongdoings. People who are disturbed by sickness have no strength to do anything useful. Likewise, those whose minds are disturbed by confusion have no strength to do anything wholesome. Whatever has been learned, contemplated and meditated upon by those whose minds lack alertness, just like water in a leaking vase, will not be retained in their memory. Even those who have much learning, faith, and willing perseverance will become defiled by a moral fall due to the mistake of lacking alertness. The thieves of alertness, in following upon the decline of mindfulness, will steal even the merits I have firmly gathered, so that I shall then proceed to lower realms. This host of thieves, who are my own disturbing conceptions, will search for a good opportunity. Having found it, they will steal my virtue and destroy the attainment of life in a happy realm. Therefore, I shall never let mindfulness depart from the doorway of my mind. If it goes, I shall recall the misery of all the lower realms and firmly re-establish it there through staying in the company of spiritual masters, through the instructions of abbots, and through fear. Mindfulness will easily be generated in fortunate people who practice with respect. I am ever dwelling in the presence of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who are always endowed with the unobstructed vision. By thinking in this way, I shall mindfully develop a sense of shame, respect, and fear. Also, through doing this, recollection of the Buddhas will repeatedly occur. So verse number 51, 52, 53. So 53 says, whenever I have impatience, laziness, cowardice, shamelessness, or the desire to talk nonsense, if thoughts of partiality arise, all these times too, I should remain like a piece of wood, having in this way examined their minds for disturbing conceptions and for thoughts that strive for meaningless things. The courageous bodhisattvas should hold their minds steady through the application of remedial forces, being very resolute and faithful, steady, respectful, polite, with a sense of shame, apprehensive, and peaceful. I should strive to make others happy. I should not be disheartened by all the whims of the childish who are in discord with one another. I should know these to arise in my minds due to disturbing conceptions, and therefore be kind towards them. In doing that which by nature is not unwholesome, both for the sake of myself and others, sentient beings, I should always hold my mind fast, acting like an apparition, not with no sense of self. By thinking again and again that after a long time I have won the greatest leisure, likewise I should hold my mind as utterly unshakable as the king of mountains. If, mind, you are not made unhappy when this body is dragged and tossed about by the vultures, greedy for flesh, then why are you so concerned about it now? Holding this body as mine, why, mind, do you guard it so? Since you and it are separate, what use can it be to you? Why, confused mind, do you not hold on to a clean wooden form? Just what is the point of guarding this putrid, dirt-filled machine? First of all, mentally separate the layers of skin from the flesh, and then with a scalpel of discrimination, separate the flesh from the skeletal frame, and having split up open even the bones, look right down into the marrow. While examining this, ask yourself, where is its essence? If even when searching with such effort, you can apprehend no essence, then why, with so much attachment, are you still guarding this body now? What use is the body to you if it's dirty inside and are unfit for you to eat? If its blood is not fit to drink, and if its intestines are not fit to be sucked. At second verse, it is only fit to be guarded in order to feed the vultures and jackals. Truly, this body of a human being should only be employed in the practice of virtue. Yet, should you instead guard it with attachment, then what will you be able to do when it is stolen by the unsympathetic lord of death and given to the dogs and birds? So when someone praises you, you should not feel pride or arrogance. You should. And when you see the good qualities in others, you should appreciate them. So verse number 75 says, I should say, well said to all those who speak Dharma well. And if I see someone doing good, I should praise them. And be well pleased. 76. I should discreetly talk about the good qualities of others and repeat those that others recount. If my own good qualities are spoken about, I should just know and be aware that I have them. All deeds of others are the source of joy that would be rare even if it could be bought with money. Therefore, I should be happy in finding this joy in the good things that are done by others. Though during this I shall suffer no losses in this life, and in future lives shall find great happiness, but the faults of disliking the good qualities will make me unhappy and miserable, and in future lives I shall find great suffering. When talking, I should speak from my heart on what is relevant, making the meaning clear and the speech pleasing. I should not speak out of desire or hatred, but in gentle tones and in moderation. When beholding someone with my eyes, thinking I shall fully awaken through depending upon this being, I should look at that person with love and an open heart, always being motivated by great aspiration and being motivated by the remedial forces. If I work in the fields of excellence, benefit and misery, great virtues will come about. Endowed with wisdom and joy, I should undertake all that I intend to do. I need not depend upon anyone else in any actions that I undertake. The perfections such as generosity are progressively more exalted, but for a little morality I should not forsake a great gift. Principally, I should consider what will be of the most benefit for others. When this is well understood, I should always strive for the welfare of others. The far-seeing, merciful one have allowed a bodhisattva to do some actions that for others were forbidden. I should divide my food among those who have fallen to the lower ranks, those without protection, and practitioners, and eat merely what is sufficient for myself. Except for the 3 robes, I may give away all. This body, which is being used for the sacred dharma, should not be harmed for only slight benefit. By behaving in this way, the wishes of all beings will be quickly fulfilled. Those who lack the pure intention of compassion should not give their body away. Instead, both in this and future lives, they should give it to the cause of fulfilling the great purpose. The Dharma should not be explained to those who lack respect, to those who, like sick men, wear cloth around their head, to those holding umbrellas, sticks, and weapons, to those with covered heads, nor to women accompanied by man. The vast and profound should not be taught to lesser beings, although I should always pay equal respect to the Dharma of the lesser and higher beings. I should not communicate the Dharma of a lesser being to one who is of a vessel of the vast Dharma. I must not forsake the Bodhisattva's way of life, nor mislead others by means of sutras and mantras. When I spit or throw away the stick for cleaning my teeth, I should cover it up with earth. Also, it is shameful to urinate and so forth in water or on land used by others. When eating, I should not fill my mouth, eat noisily, or with my mouth wide open. I should not sit with my legs outstretched, nor rub my hands together. I should not sit alone in vehicles, upon beds, nor in the same room with women of others. In brief, having observed, inquired about what is proper, I should not do anything that would be disliked by the people of the world. So chapter number 5 is done. Chapter number 6 now. Whatever patience, whatever wholesome deeds, such as venerating the Buddhas in generosity, that I have amassed over 1,000 eons, will all be destroyed in a moment of anger. There is no transgression like hatred, and no fortitude like patience. Thus, I should strive in various ways to meditate on patience. My mind will not experience peace if it fosters painful thoughts of hatred. I shall find no joy or happiness. Unable to sleep, I shall feel unsettled. A master who has hatred is in danger of being killed, even by those who, for their wealth and happiness, depend upon the master's kindness. By it, friends and relatives are disheartened. Though drawn by my generosity, they will not trust me. In brief, there is nobody who lives happily with anger. Hence, the enemy, anger, creates suffering such as these. But whoever assiduously overcomes it finds happiness now and hereafter, having found its fuel of mental unhappiness in the prevention of what I wish for and in doing what I do not want. Hatred increases and then destroys me. Therefore, I should totally eradicate the fuel of this enemy, for this enemy has no other function than that of causing me harm. Whatever befalls me, I shall not disturb my mental joy. For having been made unhappy, I shall not accomplish what I wish, and my virtue will decline. Why be unhappy about something if it cannot be remedied? And what is the use of being unhappy about something if it cannot be remedied? For myself and for my friends, I want no suffering, no disrespect, no harsh words, and nothing unpleasant. But for my enemies, it is the opposite. The causes of happiness sometimes occur, but the causes of suffering are frequent. Without suffering, there is no renunciation. Therefore, mind, you should stand firm. If some ascetics and people of Karnapa endure the pain of cuts and burns for no reason, then for the sake of liberation, why have I no courage? There is nothing whatsoever that is not made easier through acquaintance. So, through becoming acquainted with small harms, I should learn to patiently accept greater harms. Who has not seen this to be so? With trifling sufferings, such as the bites of snakes and insects, feelings of hunger and thirst, and with such minor things as rashes. I should not be impatient with heat and cold, wind and rain, sickness, bondage, and beatings. For if I am, the harm they cause me will increase. Some, when they see their own blood, become especially brave and steady, but some, when they see the blood of others, faint and fall unconscious. Let's have tea first. Where is verse number 26. So 25 says all mistakes that occur and all the various kinds of wrongdoings arise through the force of conditions. They do not govern themselves. These conditions that assemble together have no intention to produce anything, and neither does their product have the intention to be produced. So this book is really great, wonderful. I always keep this book on my bed, beside on my pillow, and read it time and again. And if you are interested in studying about emptiness, you should study chapter 9 of this book. These reactions, verse number 18 and down, these reactions come from the mind, being either steady or timid. Therefore, I should disregard harms caused to me and not be affected by suffering. Even when the wise are suffering, their minds remain very lucid and undefiled. For when war is being waged against the disturbing conceptions, much harm is caused at the time of battle. The victorious warriors are those who, having disregarded all suffering, vanquish the foes of hatred and so forth. Common warriors slay only corpses. Furthermore, suffering has good qualities. Through being disheartened with it, arrogance is dispelled. Compassion arises for those in cyclic existence. Negativity is shunned, and joy is found in virtue. As I do not become angry with great sources of suffering such as jaundice, then why be angry with inanimate creatures or animate creatures? They too are provoked by conditions. Although they are not wished for, these sicknesses arise. And likewise, although they are not wished for, these disturbing conceptions forcibly arise. Without thinking, I shall be angry. People become angry with no resistance. And without thinking, I shall produce myself. Likewise, anger itself is produced. All mistakes that occur and all the various kinds of wrongdoings arise through the force of conditions. They do not govern themselves. These conditions that assemble together have no intention to produce anything, and neither does this product, their product, have the intention to be produced. So His Holiness is asking the attendants to distribute apricots to the people on stage. Six. That which is started to be primal substance. Oh, chirur batawa. Jitsu. Pradhan, it's called. No. No salt tea. No butter tea for me. Hmm?
This is milk tea, sugar tea.
No. This. No, this.
Oh, yeah.
Verse number 27, chapter 6. This is stating the non-Buddhist views. That which is asserted as primal substance, or pradhan, and that which is imputed as a self, since they are unproduced, do not arise after having purposely thought, I shall arise in order to cause harm. If they are unproduced and non-existent, then whatever wish they have to produce harm will not exist. Also, since this self would permanently apprehend its object, it follows that it would never cease to do so. Furthermore, if the self were permanent, it would clearly be devoid of action, like space. And even if it met with other conditions, how could its unchanging nature be affected? Even if, when acted upon by other conditions, it remains as before, then what could actions do to it? Thus, if I say that this condition acts upon a permanent self, how could the two ever be causally related? 31. Hence, everything is governed by other factors, which in turn are governed by others, and in this way nothing governs itself. Having understood this, I should not be angry with phenomena that are like apparitions. If everything is unreal like an apparition, then who is there to restrain what anger? What? Surely in this case, restraint would be inappropriate. It would not be inappropriate because conventionally I must maintain that in dependence upon restraining anger, the steam of suffering is severed. So when one is in, when one sees an enemy or even a friend committing an improper action by thinking that such things arise from conditions, I shall remain in a happy frame of mind. If things were brought into being by choice, then since no one wishes to suffer, suffering would not occur to anybody, any embodied creature. Through not being careful, people even harm themselves with thorns and other things. And for the sake of obtaining women and the like, they become obsessed and deprive themselves of food. Verse number 39, even if it were the nature of childish to cause harm to other beings, I should still be incorrect to be angry with them, for this would be like begrudging fire for having the nature to burn. And even if the faults are temporary, in they who are by nature reliable, it would still be incorrect to be angry, for this would be like begrudging space for allowing smoke to arise in it. If I become angry with the wielder, although I am actually harmed by his stick, then since the perpetrator too is secondary, being in turn incited by hatred, I should be angry with the hatred instead. Previously, I must have caused similar harm to other sentient beings. Therefore, it is right for this harm to be returned to me who caused injury to others. Both the weapon and my body are the causes of my suffering. Since the other gave rise to the weapon and I to the body, with whom should I be angry? If in blind attachment I cling to this suffering abscess of a human form, which cannot bear to be touched, with whom should I be angry with when it is hurt? It is the fault of the childish that they are hurt. For although they do not wish to suffer, they are greatly attached to its causes. So why should they be angry with others? Just like the guardians of the hell worlds and the forest of razor sharp leaves, so is this suffering produced by my actions. With whom, therefore, should I be angry? Having been instigated by my own actions, those who cause me harm come into being. If by these actions they should fall into hell, surely isn't it I who am destroying them? In dependence upon them, I purify my transgressions by patiently accepting the harms that they cause. But in dependence upon me, they will fall into the hellish pain for a very long time. So, since I am causing harm to them and they are benefiting me, why, unruly minds, do you become angry in such mistaken manner? If my mind has the noble quality of patience, I shall not go to hell. Although I am protecting myself in this way, how will it be so for them? Nevertheless, should I return the harm, it will not protect them either. By doing so, my conduct will deteriorate, and hence this fortitude will be destroyed. Since my mind is not physical, in no way can anyone destroy it, but through its being greatly attached to my body, it is caused harm by physical suffering. Since disrespect, harsh speech, and unpleasant words do not cause harm to my body, why, mind, do you become so angry? Because others dislike me, but since it will not devalue me, either in this or in another life, why do I not want this dislike? Because it will hinder my worldly gain. Even if I do not want, I shall have to leave my worldly gains behind, and my wrongdoings alone will remain unmoved. Thus, it is better that I die today than live a long but wicked life. For even if people like me should live a long time, there will always be suffering of death. Suppose someone should awaken from a dream in which they experienced 100 years of happiness, and suppose another should awaken from a dream in which he experienced just one moment of happiness. For both of these people who have awoken, that happiness will never return. Similarly, whether my life has been long or short, at the time of death it will be finished like this. Although I may live happily for a long time through obtaining a great deal of material wealth, I shall go forth empty-handed and destitute, just like having been robbed by a thief. Surely material wealth will enable me to live, and then I shall be able to consume transgressions and do good. But if I am angry on account of it, will not my merit be consumed and transgressions increase? And what use will it be the life of one who only commits wrongdoing, if for the sake of material gain he causes merits needed for life to degenerate? Surely I should be angry with those who say unpleasant things that weaken other beings' confidence in me. In the same way, why am I not angry with people who say unpleasant things about others? If I shall patiently accept this lack of confidence because it is related to someone else, then why am I not patient with unpleasant words about myself, since they are related to the arising of disturbing conceptions? Should others talk badly of or even destroy holy images, reliquaries, and sacred dharma, it is improper for me to resent it, for the Buddhas can never be endured. I should prevent anger arising towards those who injure my spiritual masters, relatives, and friends. Instead, I should see, as in the manner shown before, that such things arise from conditions. Since embodied creatures are injured by both inanimate beings and inanimate objects, why only bear malice to the animate? It follows that I should patiently accept all harm. Should one person ignorantly do wrong and another ignorantly become angry with the wrongdoer, who would be at fault? And who would be without fault? Why did I previously commit those actions, because of which others now cause me harm? Since everything is related to my actions, why should I bear malice towards these enemies? When I have seen this to be so, I should strive for what is meritorious, in order to certainly bring about loving thoughts between all. For example, when a fire is on in one house has moved, when fire in one house has moved into another house, it is right to get rid of the straws and such things that will cause the fire to spread. Likewise, when the fire of hatred spreads to whatever my mind is attached to, I should immediately get rid of it. So, for fear of my merit being burned, why is a person condemned to death not fortunate if they are released after having a hand cut off? Why am I, who am experiencing human misery, not fortunate, if by that I am spared from the agonies of hell? If I am unable to endure even the mere sufferings of the present, then why do I not restrain myself from being angry, which will be the source of hellish misery? For the sake of satisfying my desires, I have suffered numerous burnings in hell. But by those actions, I neither fulfilled the purpose of myself nor others. Yet now, since great meaning will accrue from harm which is not even a fraction of that, I should indeed be solely joyful towards such suffering that dispels the harms of all. Should someone else find joyous happiness in praising my enemy as an excellent person, why mind? Do you not praise them too, and likewise make yourself happy? That joyous happiness of yours would be a source of joy, not something prohibited, a precept given by the excellent ones, and supreme means for assembling others. It is said that others are made happy through being praised in this way. If in this way you do not want them to have this happiness, then since it makes them happy, you should cease giving wages and the like to your servants. However, you would be adversely affected both in this and future lives. When people describe my own good qualities, I want others to be happy too. But when they describe the good qualities to others, I do not wish to be happy myself. Having generated the awakening mind through wishing all beings to be happy, why should I become angry if they find some happiness themselves? If I wish for all sentient beings to become Buddhas worshipped throughout the three realms, then why am I tormented when I see them receiving mere mundane respect? If a relative for whom I am caring and to whom I must give many things should be able to find their own livelihood, wouldn't I be happy rather than angry? If I do not wish for beings to have even this, how can I wish for them to awaken? And where is there an awakening mind in one who becomes angry when others receive things? What does it matter if my enemy is given something or not, whether they obtain it or whether it remains in the benefactor's house? In either case, I shall get nothing. So why, by becoming angry, do I throw away my merits, the faith others have in me and my good qualities? Tell me, why am I not angry with myself for not having causes for gain, let alone not having any remorse about the wrongs that I committed? O mind, why do you wish to compete with others who have committed meritorious deeds? Even if your enemy is made unhappy, what is there for you to be joyful about? Your merely wishing for them to be heard did not cause them to be endured. The honor of praise and fame will not turn into merit nor life. It will give me neither strength nor freedom from sickness and will not provide any physical happiness. If I were aware of what held meaning for me, what value would I find in these things? If all I want is a little mental happiness, I should devote myself to gambling, drinking, and so forth. If, for the sake of fame, I give away my wealth or get myself killed, what can the mere words of fame do then? Once I have died, to whom will they give pleasure? When their sandcastles collapse, children howl in despair. Likewise, when my praise and reputations decline, my mind becomes like a little child. Since short-lived sounds are inanimate, they cannot possibly thinking of praising me. But as it makes a bestower of praise happy, my reputation is a source of pleasure for me. Whether this praise is directed at myself or someone else, how shall I be benefited by the joy of the one who bestows it? Wisdom chapter 6 done. Chapter 7. Having patience, I should develop enthusiasm. For awakening will dwell only in those who exert themselves, just as there is no movement without wind, so merit does not occur without enthusiasm. What is enthusiasm? It is finding joy in what is wholesome. Its opposing factors are explained as laziness, attraction to what is harmful, and despising oneself out of despondency. Because of attachment to the pleasurable taste of idleness, because of craving for sleep, and because of having no disillusion with the misery of cyclic existence, laziness grows very strong, enmeshed in the snare of disturbing conceptions. I have entered the snare of birth. Why am I still not aware that I live in the mouth of the Lord of death? Do I not see that he is systematically slaughtering my species? Whoever remains soundly asleep surely behaves like a buffalo with a butcher. When having blocked off every escape route, the Lord of death is looking for someone to kill. How can I enjoy eating? And likewise, how can I enjoy sleep? For as long as death is actually approaching, then I shall accumulate merit. Even if I then put a stop to laziness, what will be the use? That is not the time. When this has not been done, when this is being done, and when this is only half finished, suddenly the Lord of death will come, and the thought will occur, oh no, I'm done for. Their faces flowing with tears and their eyes red and swollen with sorrow, my relatives will finally lose hope, and I shall behold the vision of the messengers of death. Tormented by the memory of my wrongdoing and hearing the sounds of hell, in terror I shall clothe my body in excrement. What virtue can I do in such a delirious state? If even in this life I shall be gripped with fear like that of a fish being rolled in hot sand, why even mention the unbearable agonies of hell that will result from my wholesome deeds? How can I remain at ease like this when I have committed the actions that will bear fruit in my delicate infant's body, encountering boiling acids in the hells of tremendous heat? Much harm befalls those with little forbearance and those who want results without making any effort. While clasped by death, they shall cry like the gods, oh no, I'm overcome by misery. Relying upon the boats of human body, free yourself from the great river of pain, as it is hard to find this boat again. This is no time for sleep, you fool. Having rejected the supreme joy of the sacred Dharma, that is the boundless source of delight, why am I distracted by the causes of pain? Why do I enjoy frivolous amusement and the like? Without indulging in despondency, I should gather the supports for enthusiasm and earnestly take control of myself. Then, by seeing the equality between self and others, I should practice exchanging self for others. I should never indulge in the despondency by entertaining such thoughts as, how shall I ever awaken? For the Tathagatas who speak what is virtue have uttered this truth. If they develop the strength of their exertion, even those who are flies, mosquitoes, bees, and insects will win the unsurpassable awakening, which is so hard to find. It will be so if I do not forsake the Bodhisattva's way of life. Why should someone like myself, who has been born in a human race, not attain awakening, since I am able to recognize what is beneficial and what is of harm? Nevertheless, it frightens me to think that I may have to give away my arms and legs without discriminating between what is heavy and what is light. I am reduced to fear through confusion. For over countless myriads of eons I have been cut, stabbed, burnt, and flayed alive innumerable times, but I have not awakened. Yet the suffering involved in my awakening will have a limit. It is like the suffering of having an incision made in order to remove and destroy greater pain. Even doctors eliminate illness by unpleasant medical treatments. So in order to overcome manifold sufferings, I should be able to put up with some discomfort. Yet the Supreme Physician does not employ common medical treatments such as these. With an extremely gentle technique, he remedies all the greatest ills. At the beginning, the guide of the world encourages the giving of such things as food. Later, when accustomed to this, one may progressively start to give away even one's flesh. At such a time, when my mind is developed to the point of regarding my body like food, then what hardship would there be when it came to giving away my flesh? Having forsaken all transgressions, there would be no suffering, and due to wisdom, there would be no lack of joy. By But now my mind is afflicted by mistaken conceptions, and my body is caused harm by unwholesome deeds, as their bodies are happy due to their merits, and their minds are happy due to their wisdom. Even if they remained in cyclic existence for the sake of others, why would the compassionate ones ever be upset? Due to the strength of his awakening mind, the Bodhisattva consumes his previous evils and harvests oceans of merit. Hence, he is said to excel the Shravakas. So, having mounted the horse of awakening mind that dispels all discouragement and weariness, who, when they know of this mind to proceed from joy to joy, would ever lapse into despondency. The supports when working for the sake of living beings are aspiration, steadfastness, joy and rest, aspiration and developed through fear of misery. Aspiration is developed through fear of misery and by contemplating the benefits of aspiration itself. Thus, in order to increase my enthusiasm, I should strive to abandon its opposite forces, to amass the supports of aspiration, self-confidence, joy and rest, to practice in earnest, and to become strong in self-control. I shall have to overcome the boundless faults of myself and others in order to destroy each of these faults alone. I may have to strive until the ocean of eons is exhausted. Yet, if within myself I do not perceive even a fraction of the perseverance required to exhaust these faults, then why do I not have a heart attack? For now I have become an abode of infinite misery. Likewise, I shall have to realize many resculant qualities for myself and others, and in order to attain each of these qualities alone, I may have to acquaint myself with its cause until the ocean of eons is exhausted. However, I have never developed acquaintance with even a fraction of these excellences. How strange it is to squander this birth I have found by such coincidence. I have not made offerings to the Lord Buddhas. I have not given the pleasure of great festivals. I have not performed actions for teachings. I have not fulfilled the wishes of the poor. I have not granted fearlessness to the frightened, and I have not given happiness to the weak. All I have given rise to is the agonies of the mother's womb and to suffering, both now and in previous lives. Such deprivation has arisen because of my lack of aspiration for the Dharma. Who would ever reject this aspiring for Dharma? The Mighty One himself has said that aspiration is the root of every facet of virtue. Its root is constant acquaintance with the ripening effects of actions. Physical pain, mental unhappiness, all the various kinds of fear, as well as separation from what is desired, all arise from an unwholesome way of life. However, by committing wholesome actions, which are motivated by aspirations in the mind, whenever I go, I shall present it with tokens of fruit of that merit. Verse number 68. Just as an old warrior approaches the swords of an enemy upon the battlefront, so shall I avoid the weapons of disturbing conceptions and skillfully bind this enemy. If someone dropped a sword during a battle, they would immediately pick it up out of fear. Likewise, if I lose the weapon of mindfulness, I should quickly retrieve it, being afraid of hell. Just as poison spreads throughout the body in dependence upon the circulation of blood, likewise, if disturbing conceptions finds an opportunity, unwholesomeness will permeate my mind. Those who practice should be as attentive as a frightened man carrying a jar full of mustard oil who is being threatened by someone with a sword and told that he will be killed if he spills just one drop. Just as I would swiftly stand up if a snake came into my lap. Likewise, if any sleep or laziness occurs, I shall quickly turn away, turn them back. Each time something unwholesome occurs, I should criticize myself and then contemplate for a long time that I shall never let this happen again. Likewise, in all these situations, I shall acquaint myself with mindfulness. With this motivation as a cause, I shall aspire to meet with teachers and accomplish the task, the assignment. In order to have strength for everything, I should recall before undertaking any action the advice in the chapter on conscientiousness, and then joyfully rise to the task. Just as the wind blowing back and forth controls the movements of a piece of cotton, so shall I be controlled by joy, and in this way accomplished everything. Chapter 7 done. Chapter 8. Having developed enthusiasm in this way, it's a meditation. I should place my mind in concentration. For the man whose mind is distracted dwells within the fangs of disturbing conceptions. However, through solitude of body and mind, no distractions will occur. However, through solitude of body and mind, no distraction will occur. Therefore, I should forsake the worldly life and completely discard distorted conceptions. Worldly life is not forsaken because of attachment to people and due to craving for material gain and the like. Therefore, I should entirely forsake these things, for this is the way in which the wise behave. Having understood that disturbing conceptions are completely overcome by superior insight, endowed with calm abiding for all. First of all, I should search for calm abiding. This is achieved through the genuine joy of these unattached to the worldly life. Because of the obsession one transcendent being has for the transcendent being, he will not see the beloved ones again for many thousands of years. Not saying them I'm unhappy and my mind cannot be settled in equipoise. Even if I see them, there is no satisfaction, and as before, I'm tormented by craving. Through being attached to living beings, I am completely obscured from the perfect reality. My disillusionment with secular existence perishes, and in the end, I'm tortured by sorrow. By thinking only of them, this life will pass without any meaning. Furthermore, impermanent friends and relatives will even destroy the dharma, which leads to permanent liberation. If I behave in the same way as the childish, I shall certainly proceed to lower realms. And if I am led there by those unequal to the noble ones, what is the use of entrusting myself to the childish? One moment they are friends, and in the next instant they might become enemies. Since they become angry, even in joyful situations, it is difficult to please ordinary beings. They are angry when something of benefit is said, and they also turn me away from what is beneficial. If I do not listen to what they say, they become angry, and hence proceed to lower realms. They are envious of superiors, competitive with equals, arrogant towards inferiors, conceited when praised, and if anything unpleasant is said, they become angry. Never is any benefit derived from the childish. Through associating with the childish, there will certainly ensue unwholesomeness. Such as praising myself and belittling others and discussing the joys of second existence, developing myself to others. In this way, will bring about nothing but misfortune. Because they will not benefit me and I shall not benefit them. I should flee away from the childish people when they are encountered, though I should please them by being happy. I should behave well, merely out of courtesy, but not become greatly familiar. Befriending no one and begrudging no one, my body will dwell alone in solitude if I am already counted as a dead man. When I die, there will be no mourners. And as there will be no one around to disturb me with their mourning, thus there will be no one to distract me from my recollection of the Buddha. Therefore, I shall dwell alone, happy and contented with my few difficulties, in very joyful and beautiful forests, specifying all distractions, having given up all other intentions, being motivated by only one thought, I shall strive to settle my mind in equipoise and subdue it with superior insight. Both in this world and the next, desires give rise to great misfortune. In this life, killing, bondage, flaying, and in the next life, the existence of hell. For the sake of women, many requests are first of all made through go-betweens. All forms of transgression and even notoriety are not avoided for their sake. I engage in fearful deeds for them and will even consume my wealth. But these very bodies of theirs, which I greatly enjoy in the sexual embrace, are nothing other than skeletons. They are not autonomous and are identityless. Rather than being so desirous and completely obsessed, why do I not go to the state of beyond sorrow instead? In the first place, I made efforts to lift her veil. And when it was raised, she bashfully looked down. Previously, whether anyone looked or not, her face was covered with a cloth. Yet now, why do I run away upon directly beholding this face, which disturbs the mind, and it is being revealed to me by the vultures? Previously, I completely protected her body when others cast their eyes upon it. Why, miser, do you not protect it now, while it is being devoured by these birds? Since vultures and others are eating this pile of meat that I behold, why did I offer flower garlands, sandalwood, and ornaments to that which is now the food of others? If I am frightened by the skeleton I see, even though they do not move, why am I not frightened by the walking corpses, which are moved around by few impulses? Although I am attached to it when it is covered with skin, why do I not desire it when it is uncovered? Since I have no need for it, then why copulate with it when it is covered? Since both excrement and saliva arise solely from food, why do I dislike excrement and enjoy the joy and find joy in saliva? Cotton too is often soft to the touch. Verse 61, not only do I disparage the uncleanliness of my own body, but because of the obsession for what is unclean, I desire other bags of filth as well. Even attractive things such as savory food, cooked rice and vegetables make the ground dirty and unclean. Should I be spat out after being in the mouth? Should they be spat out after being in the mouth? Although such uncleanliness is obvious, if I still have doubts, I should go to the cemeteries and look at the unclean bodies of others that have been thrown away there, having realized that when their skin is rent open, they give rise to a great deal of fear. How will such things as these ever again give rise to joy? The scent with which someone's body is anointed are sandalwood and the like, but not that of the other's body. So why am I attached to others' body? Because of scents that are other than theirs. Since the body has naturally foul odor, isn't it good to be unattached to it? Why do those who crave for meaningless things of the world anoint this body with pleasant scents? And furthermore, if it is unpleasant scent of sandalwood, how can it come from the body? So why am I attached to others' body? Because of scents that are other than theirs. Since the naked body left in its natural state is very frightening due to its long hair and nails, its yellowish, foul-smelling teeth, and its being coated with the odor of dirt. Why do I make such an effort to polish it, like cleaning a weapon that will cause me harm? Hence, this entire world is disturbed with insanity due to the exertions of those who are confused about themselves. When my mind rises above the worldly concerns through having beheld nothing but skeletons in this cemetery, will there be any joy in graveyard cities which are filled with moving skeletons? Furthermore, these unclean female bodies are not found without paying a price. In order to obtain them, I exhaust myself, and in future will be endured in the hells. As a child, I am unable to increase my wealth, and as youth, what can I do, being unable to afford a wife? At the end of my life, when I have the wealth, being an old man, what good will sex be then? Some malicious and lustful people wear themselves out by working all day, and when they return home in the evening, their exhausted bodies lie prostrate like corpses. Some have the suffering of being disturbed with travel and having to go a long way from home. Although they long for their spouses, they do not see them for years at a time. So Psalm 77, some fools who are deceived by desire and wishing for a livelihood, think, I shall earn my living as a soldier. Then, although afraid of losing their lives, they go to war. Others become slaves for the sake of profit. Some lustful people even cut their bodies. Others impale themselves on the points of sticks. Some stab themselves with daggers, and others burn themselves. Such things as these are quite apparent. Due to the torment involved in protecting it, protecting, and finally losing it, I should realize wealth to be fraught with infinite problems. Which 95. Verse number 95 says, when both myself and others are similar in that we wish to be happy, what is so special about me? Why do I strive for the happiness of my happiness alone? And when both myself and others are similar in that we do not wish to suffer, what is so special about me? Why do I protect myself and not others? So I recite this verse every day. Why should I protect them if their suffering does not cause me any harm? You might question. Then why protect myself against future suffering if it causes me no harm now? Surely it is a mistaken conception to think that I shall experience the suffering of next life, for it is another person who dies, and in another that will be reborn. Surely, whenever there is suffering, the sufferers must protect himself from it. Yet the suffering of foot is not the suffering of the hand. Why then does one protect the other? Although this may not be justified, it is done because of grasping at a self. Yet surely, whatever is not justified for myself and or others should at all costs be rejected. Such things as a continuum and aggregation are false in the same way as prayer beads and an army. There is no real honor of suffering. Therefore, who has control over it? There being no inherent honor of suffering, there can be no distinction at all between that of myself and others. Thus, I shall dispel it because it hurts. Why am I so certain that I shouldn't eliminate the suffering of others? But since neither the suffering nor the suffering truly exists, why should I turn away this misery of all? There is no ground for argument. This is no ground for argument. For if I prevent my own suffering, surely I should prevent the suffering of all. If not, since I am just like other sentient beings, I should not prevent my own suffering either. Since the compassion will bring me much misery, why should I exert myself to develop it? Should I contemplate the suffering of living creatures, how could the misery of compassion be more? If by one person's suffering, the suffering of many would be destroyed, surely kind-hearted people would accept it for the sake of themselves and others. Thus, the Bodhisattva Supushpachandra, although aware of harm the king would cause him, accepted his own suffering in order to eradicate the miseries of many. Thus, because they love to pacify the pains of others, those whose minds are attuned in this way would enter even the deepest hell, just as a wild goose plunges into the lotus pool. Will not the ocean of joy that shall exist when all beings are freed be sufficient for me? What am I doing wishing for my liberation alone? Therefore, although working for the benefit of others, I shall not be conceited or consider myself wonderful. And because of the joy there is in solely doing this, I should have no hope for anything ripening effect. Therefore, just as I protect myself from unpleasant things, however small, in the same way I should act towards others with a compassionate and caring mind. Although the basis is quite impersonal through constant familiarity, I have come to regard the drops of sperm and blood of others as I. So in the same way, why should I be unable to regard the bodies of others as I? Hence, it is not difficult to see that my body is also that of others. Having seen the mistakes in cherishing myself and the ocean of good in cherishing others, I shall completely reject all selfishness and accustom myself to accepting others. In the same way as the hands and so forth are regarded as limbs of the body, likewise, why are embodied creatures not regarded as limbs of life? Through acquaintance has the thought of I risen towards this impersonal body. So in the similar way, why should it not arise towards other living beings? When I work in this way for the sake of others, I should not let conceit or feeling that I am wonderful arise. It is just like feeding myself. I hope for nothing in return. Therefore, just as I protect myself from unpleasant things, however slight, in the same way I should habituate myself to have a compassionate and caring mind towards others. It is out of this great compassion that Lord Avalokiteshvara even blessed his name to dispel the nervousness of beings among other people. I should not turn away from what is difficult, for by the power of familiarity, I may be made unhappy even when someone whose name once frightened me is not around. Thus, whoever wishes to quickly afford protection to both myself and other beings should practice that holy secret, the exchanging of self and for others. Because of attachment to my body, even a small object of fear frightens me. So, who would not revile as an enemy this body that gives rise to fear? By wishing for a means to remedy the hunger, thirst, and sickness of the body, I might kill birds, fish, deer, and loiter by the sides of roads to rob others. If for the sake of its benefit, its profit and comfort, I would kill even my father and mother and steal the property of this triple gem, then I would undoubtedly proceed to burn in the flames of the deepest hell. Therefore, what adepts would desire, protect and venerate this body, who would not scorn it and regard it as an enemy? If I give this, what shall I have left to enjoy? Such selfish thinking is the way of ghosts. If I enjoy this, what shall I have left to give? Such selfish thinking, selfless thinking is a quality of the gods. If for my own sake I cause harm to others, I shall be tormented in hellish winds. But if for the sake of others I cause harm to myself, I should acquire all that is magnificent. By holding myself in high esteem, I shall find myself in unpleasant realms, ugly and stupid. But should this attitude be shifted to others, I shall acquire honors in joyful realms. If I employ others for my own purpose, I myself shall experience servitude. But if I use myself for the sake of others, I should experience only lordliness. Whatever joy there is in this world, all comes from desiring others to be happy. And whatever suffering there is in this world, all comes from desiring myself to be happy. What need is there to say more? The childish work for their own benefit, the Buddhas work for the benefit of others. Just look at the difference between them. If I do not actually exchange my happiness for the suffering of others, I shall not attain the state of Buddhahood, and even in cyclic existence shall I have no joy, let alone what is beyond this world, because my servants do not work, and even because my master is giving me no pay, even the needs of this life will not be fulfilled. By rejecting the method that establishes both foreseeable and unforeseeable joy, I cast magnificent delight completely aside, and then, because of inflicting misery on others, in confusion, I seized hold of unbearable pain. If all the injury, fear and pain in this world arise from grasping at a self, then what use is the great ghost to me? If I do not completely forsake it, I shall be unable to put an end to suffering, just as I cannot avoid being burned if I do not cast aside the fire I hold. Therefore, in order to allay the harms inflicted upon me and in order to pacify the suffering of others, I shall give myself up to others and cherish them as I do my very self. I am under the control of others. Of this mind, you must be certain. Now, except for benefiting every creature, you must not think of anything else. For my sake, I should not do anything with eyes and so forth, which I have left at the disposal of others. It is quite incorrect to do anything with them which is contrary to the benefit of others. Thus, sentient beings should be my main concern. Whatever I behold upon my body, I should rob and use for the benefit of others. Considering lesser beings and so forth as myself, and considering myself as other, in the following way I should meditate upon envy, competitiveness, and self-importance, with a mind free of distorted concepts. He is honored, but I am not. I have not found wealth such as he. He is praised, but I am despised. He is happy, but I suffer. I have, I have to do all the work while he remains comfortably at rest. He is renowned as great in this world, but I as inferior, with no good qualities at all. But what do you mean? I have no good qualities? I have good qualities. Compared to many, he is inferior, and compared to many, I am high. The deteriorated state of my morals and views is not due to me, but due to disturbing conceptions. In whatever way he is able, he should heal me. Heal me. Willingly, I shall accept any discomfort involved. But I am not being healed by him, so why does he belittle me? What use are his good qualities to me? Although he has good qualities, he does not benefit me. With no compassion for beings who dwell in the poisonous mouth of harmful realms, eternally he is proud of his good qualities and wishes to put down the wise. In order that I may exalt he who is regarded as equal with me, I shall definitely strive to attain material gain and honor for myself, even by such means as verbal dispute. By all means, I shall make clear to the entire world all the good qualities I have, but I shall not let anyone hear of any good qualities he may have. Also, I shall hide my faults. I will be venerated, but not hate. I will find a great deal of material gain. I will be honored, but he shall not. For a long time, I should look with pleasure at his being made inferior, and so forth. Chapter 8 done. Therefore, in order to dispel the obscurations, I shall withdraw my mind from mistaken ways and constantly place it in equipoise upon the perfect object. So, chapter number 9 on wisdom. So, in order to reach Buddhahood, from where you can help others infinitely, you should develop both the skillful means and wisdom. They should be combined in your practice. So those of us who, or all of us who pray to become a Buddha, we must combine both the aspiration to become Buddha, which is the bodhichitta, and the wisdom realizing selflessness. And so this text says, the sage propounded all these branches of teaching for the sake of wisdom. Therefore, those who wish to pacify suffering should generate wisdom. So with regard to developing the wisdom of selflessness or emptiness, one should develop the understanding that things are independently related or dependently arising. By dependence, we are not denying emptiness of things, and by origination or arising, we are not denying the conventionalities of things. So all the changes that we see happen because of dependence on other things. And therefore, by understanding that things are dependently arising, you are able to dispel both the extremes of nihilism and eternalism. So conventional and ultimate, these are accepted as being two truths. The ultimate is not the object of mind. So within the mind, there are those of valid cognition, non-valid cognition, assumptions, and so forth. So with regard to the ultimate reality of things, we need to acquaint our mind over a long period of time to be able to gain insight into that ultimate reality, so that when you realize the ultimate reality, you will be able to see it, and all these conventionalities kind of fade from your mind. So mind is there even in the Buddhas and the Arya beings who see the truth of ultimate reality directly. Their mind, when absorbed in emptiness or selflessness, is mind. The Buddha's omniscient mind also is mind. So in mind there are many different aspects. So the mind is spoken of as conventional. So when you actually ponder on contemplate on how things exist, your mind will be absorbed in emptiness, whereby all the appearances of conventional things will disappear from your view. So I do have some experience of it, though I'm not able to remain there for a long time. So there are those of the line which says the mind is spoken of as the ultimate is not the object of mind. Here the mind refers to dualistic mind. The world is seen to be of two types, yogis and common people. The world of common people is undermined by the world of yogis. Through the difference in their intelligence, the yogis too are undermined by their higher ones. So the superior Arya beings, of course, do accept things that we see to be existent, but the way they see things is not like us. They see things as if they are like illusion, that there's nothing whatever that exists independently. So there are different kinds of reasonings that we use to prove emptiness of things or selflessness of things, such as the diamond splinter, reasoning of diamond splinter, and so forth. So Master Chandrakirti says in his Madhyamaka Avatara, thus when phenomena is analyzed, nothing is found as their nature apart from suchness. So when the conventional truth of the everyday world should not be subjected to thorough analysis. A thesis is proved by examples accepted by both. Unanalyzed, the practitioners train for the result. So, verse number 6 says, even direct perception of form and so forth only view conventionalities and not the valid cognitions. So what this says is that basically that things do not exist the way they appear to our perceptions. Form and so forth are false, like worldly acceptance of that what is unclean, and so forth to be clean and like. For the sake of letting the world enter into reality, the guardian, or the Buddha, taught about things in the ultimate sense. However, they are not momentary. But that is also contradictory conventionality. The convention of yogis has no faults. Otherwise, their discernment of the uncleanliness of other would be undermined by the world. From the illusion-like victorious ones, positive forces arise, just as for those believing in true things. But if a sentient being were like an illusion, then how could he take rebirth once having died? So long as conditions are gathered together, the illusion lasts that long. And how could a sentient being be truly existent merely because his continuum lasts long? In muttering and so forth of an illusory person, there is no negativity, since it has no mind. But with someone having an illusory mind, positive and negative forces accrue. Because mantras and so forth lack the ability, cannot produce a mind in an illusion. Even illusory ones that arise from varying conditions are of varying kinds, since nowhere is there one condition with the ability to produce all. If ultimately someone is released in nirvana and conventionally is circling in samsara, then Buddha as well would be circling in samsara. What use would there be for Bodhisattva's conduct? Even an illusion cannot be turned back unless the continuity of its conditions has ceased. Yet, when the continuity of those conditions ceases, it does not arise even conventionally. So when even the deceptive awareness doesn't arise by what is illusion perceived for you, if the illusion itself does not exist, then what is being perceived? In actuality, it is as something else, the aspect of which is the very mind itself. When mind itself is like an illusion, then what is being seen by what? The guardian of the world, in fact, said mind cannot see mind. Just as the edge of a sword cannot cut itself, so it is with mind. So here the assertion of mind-only school, Chittamatras, is being presented and rejected. But it is like the way a lamp flame perfectly illuminates its own characteristics. The flame of a lamp is not being illuminated, since darkness does not obscure darkness. For an intrinsic blue to be blue, it does not depend on something else, as does a crystal. We see some that depend on others and some that do not. There is no self-created blue, which is dependence void blue. If you say that the mind cognizes the illumination of the lamp flame, based on whose cognition can the statement be made? A mind has an illuminating nature, since mind has never been seen by anyone, even if discussed, as to whether it is self-luminous or not is meaningless, like the attractive gestures of a barren woman's daughter. So the Chittamatra's position or assertion that there is a self-cognizant mind is rejected here. But if a self-cognizing mind does not exist, how can consciousness be recalled? Through connection with experiencing another, recollection happens like that, like a rat's poison. But if it can illuminate itself, because when with other conditions one sees. So when we analyze things through the fourfold reasoning or fivefold reasoning or sevenfold reasoning and so forth, we can prove that things have no independent intrinsic existence, yet things do affect us. Things do give rise to their effects and so forth that cannot be denied. Just like a wish, when neither the things nor the emptiness of things stand before the mind, having no other aspect, there is full pacification of in devoid of objects. Verse number 34 and 35, just as a wish-fulfilling gem and wish-granting tree fulfill all wishes, likewise, through the power of the prayers, the enlightened body of the victorious ones appear to the disciples. For example, when a Garuda healer who empowered a healing Khan has passed away, that Khan can pacify poison and the like long after the healer's death. Similarly, when a bodhisattva has passed into nirvana, after setting up the reliquary of a victor, by conforming to the bodhisattva's conduct, he still performs all deeds. So quantum physics also says that things are not the way they appear to us, to our mind. But what we say is that things do exist, but by way of merely being designated, as mere designation and mere label. So that is what we say, which is not something that quantum physicists are able to say. Liberation, verse number 40, liberation occurs through seeing the truth. What is the use of seeing emptiness? Why? Because in scriptures it is proclaimed that without this path there is no enlightenment. But Mahayana is not established. Well, how can your scriptures be established? Because they are established for both parties. They are not established as valid at the outset. So within the Buddhist philosophical tradition, there are 4 different schools: Vaibhashikas, Sautrantikas, Chittamatras, and Madhyamakas. So within the Madhyamakas, there are sub-schools or sub-divisions. And the highest form of Madhyamaka philosophical thought is that says that things are merely imputed, designated, and there's nothing apart from being designated. So when you are able to contemplate and reflect on the Prasangika Madhyamaka view that things do not have any objective independent existence, yet they exist by way of designation, you will, through acquaintance to this kind of philosophical view, you will find some taste in it. So, the highest philosophy school within Buddhism is Prasangika Madhyamakas. So Master Nagarjuna in his fundamental treatise of the middle ways says that there's nothing which is not dependently arisen, therefore there's nothing which is not empty. So when you are able to feel convinced that things have no independent existence, but they are merely designated, and this helps to reduce your clinging to independent existence and of things. Any criterion that would be confident, that would give confidence in them, would apply equally to the Mahayana. If acceptance by 2 different parties made something true, then the Vedas and so forth also would become true. But it is because the Mahayana is disputed. Since the scripture is disputed by non-Buddhists, and some other sections of the scripture are disputed by yourself and others, they would have to be discarded too. While the bhikshus are the foundation of the teaching, it is hard to posit the bhikshus. For those minds with objects, it is hard to transcend sorrow. but they are liberated as they eliminate afflictions. That liberation must occur immediately. Despite their lacking in afflictions, they have the karmic potential. But it is definite that they do not have craving for obtaining rebirth, even if this craving is not afflictive. Why is it not like ignorance? So verse number 53 finished. As this is the case, disputation against emptiness is improper. Therefore, without indecision, please meditate on emptiness. So I meditate on emptiness by using texts such as Madhyamaka Avatara and its auto-commentary by Chandrakirti. So to find real confidence and confirm about how things do not have any independent intrinsic existence, I rely on Madhyamaka Avatara and its auto-commentary, which I keep beside my bed. Emptiness is a remedy to the darkness of afflictive and cognitive obscurations. How can one wishing to quickly achieve omniscience not meditate on it? While fear should be with what gives rise to suffering, emptiness pacifies suffering. Why be fearful of that? If there was something called a self, there would be something to be afraid. But as one finds self nowhere, who is there to experience fear? Teeth, hair, and nails are not the self, nor is the self the bones or blood. Self is neither mucus nor flame, nor is self lymph or pus. Self is not fat nor sweat, and so forth. Verse number 59 done. And next comes the refutation of self as postulated by non-Buddhist philosophical schools. So refutation of Sankhya school's position that consciousness is self comes in verse number 60. If the mind perceiving sound were permanent, the sound would be cognized at all times. But what is cognized when bereft of an object? For what reasons could it be called a cognizer? If something could be a cognizer without an object, then absurdly a stick would also be a cognizer. Therefore, without being associated with an object, it is certain that cognition is non-existent. It cognizes a sight. Why does it also not hear that at the same time? Because the sound is not nearby. Then it is no longer a cognizer of it. 63. How can something having the nature of a sound cognizer become the cognizer of sight? By imputation, a single person is a father and a son, and not due to this his true nature. Likewise, courage, particles, darkness are neither a son nor a father. And a cognizer of sight has never been seen that has a nature associated with the sound cognizer. Like a dancer, it is still itself, but is seen in another guise. Well, then, it would be impermanent. And suppose the other guise is the very same. Its oneness is oneness that just does not exist before, did not exist before. But its other modes of perception are not true. Then please describe its own nature. It is a cognizer. Absurdly, it would follow that all people are one. What has mind and what lacks mind, those two would in fact become the same thing, as their existence is the same. And if the individual identities were false, then what could be their shared basis? And then the refutation of Nyayika's school's position of self. Number 68. Furthermore, something lacking in mind cannot be self, as it has no mind. like a vase and so forth. It is cognizant because of its conjunction with the mind. It absurdly follows that this non-cognizant has perished. And if the self were unchanging, what could mind do to it? If the self were devoid of mind and activities, space could also become a self. Then rejection of argument concerning selflessness of persons. But if a self does not exist, the connection between actions and their effects could not be maintained, since actions cease after having been done. To whom should actions be ascribed? 71 says, since it is established for both of us that actions and result have a different basis, and that the self of action is not there, is it not pointless to dispute on this? 72 says, seeing a causal state with a result is never feasible. Through this shared continuum, the agent and the experiencer are explained. The past and the future minds are not the self, since they do not exist. And if the mind arising were the self, when it perishes, there would be in fact no self. For example, when the trunk of a plantain tree is split apart, nothing is found. Likewise, when sought through the investigation, a self also cannot be found. If sentient beings do not exist, towards whom does one generate compassion? It is the one imputed by ignorance, which is accepted for the goal. Whose fruit is it, if there are no sentient beings? Fair enough, but this is posited through ignorance. In order to completely pacify suffering for the result, eliminate not ignorance associated. Because the arrogance, which is a source of suffering, misconceives the self, suffering increases. But that cannot be undermined. To meditate on selflessness is supreme. My gosh. So verse number 92 was where His Holiness was commenting, because that feeling is not intrinsic one. Intrinsic, one should meditate on this analysis as remedy. The insight that grows from the field of analysis and the meditation are the foods of yogis. And rejecting intrinsic causes. If there is a gap between source and its object, where would they meet? If there is no gap, would be just one. So the meeting would be of what with what? A particle cannot conflate with another particle, as there is no instance of space, and they are uniform. So these verses talk about how analyzing things, and in order to see if you can find anything that you can call this or that. But when you analyze things, and in order to find their identity, nothing can be pinpointed as being this or that. So this must be understood. For a consciousness which is immaterial, 96, a meeting is untenable. A collection as well does not truly exist. The earlier analysis is also applicable here. Thus, when contact does not exist, from what does a feeling arise? For what reason is all these painful efforts made? For whom and from what can harm occur? And when there is no one to feel, the feeling as well does not exist. Then, seeing this situation, why is craving not eliminated? Those seen or touched have the nature of a dream or an illusion. Having arisen simultaneously with the mind, the feeling is not perceived by that mind. Those produced before or after can be remembered and not experienced. One cannot experience oneself, nor be experienced by others. There is no one that feels. Feeling cannot truly exist. How can these induce harm to this collection that lacks a self? And then comes selfness as a phenomena in relation to close placement of mindfulness on mind. A mind does not exist in sources, nor in forms, and so forth, nor in between. A mind is not inside, nor outside, nor can it be found anywhere else. That which is not the body, nor others, neither commingled, nor separate in any way, is not a thing at all. As such, sentient beings are released in natural nirvana. If the cognition exists prior to the object, then on what does it focus to arise? And if a cognition and the object are simultaneous, on what does it focus to arise? Yet, if it occurs after the object, then from what does the cognition arise? And next is selflessness as a phenomena in relation to close placement of mindfulness on phenomena. This way, arising of phenomena cannot be determined, and rejection of the objection that the two truths are untenable. If conventional truth does not exist, how can there be two truths? If conventionalities are posited by others, how can sentient beings transcend sorrow? This existence is through other thoughts. This is not our mode of conventionality. If this is ascertained afterwards, it exists. If not, the conventionality does not exist. Both the thought and the to be thought are mutually dependent, and by dependence on acceptance, all objects of analysis are expressed. If the analytical intelligence is that which examines the intrinsic nature, the intelligence is also subject to examination. This leads to an infinite regress. When the object of analysis is being examined and the analysis has no basis, being devoid of a basis, it does not arise. That is called natural nirvana. For them, the two are true, but it is extremely hard to maintain. If an object is established by the power of cognition, what is the basis for the existence of cognition? And if a cognition is established through the object, then what is the basis for the existence of the object? Their existence is by the power of mutual dependence, which entails that both would not be truly existent. If a man without a child is a father, where does the child come from? In the absence of a child, there can be no father. Again, the two are not truly existent. A sprout grows from a seed, and just as the seed is indicated by the sprout, by the arising of a cognition from the object, why cannot its true existence be realized? If the seed is realized by the cognition, different from the sprout, but by what is the existence of the cognition realized which cognizes the object? And next is the logic that establishes emptiness, reasoning from the viewpoint of cause. Rejecting the cause first, causeless production. By direct perception of the conventional world, all causes are seen. The multiple parts are like lotus stalks and so forth, grow by means of multiple causes. Verse number 116 done. 117. What has produced those multiple causes? The previous multiple causes. Why does a cause have the ability to bring an effect? Well, due to the power of previous causes. And then rejecting production from permanent cause. If Ishvara were the causes of world, tell me what is Ishvara in fact? If you say the elements, then so be it. But why all the fuss about a mere name? However, earth and the rest have multiple parts, are impermanent, inanimate, and not divine, trod on and unclean. So these cannot be Ishvara. Ishvara cannot be space, as it does not waver. He cannot be the self, since it is refuted earlier. He is the creator, which is inconceivable. What is the point of discussing the inconceivable? 121. And what could it be that he wished to create? The self? Well, are not the self, the earth, and the rest, and Ishvara supposed to be eternal by nature? Cognition arises from the object of cognition. Happiness and suffering have arisen since beginninglessly from karma. So tell me what has been created by Ishvara. And if there is no beginning to the cause, how can there be a beginning to the effect? Why does he not create continually, since he does not depend on anything else? If nothing exists that was not created by him, on what does he depend in order to create? If the creation depends on others, the collection of the conditions would be the cause, and not Ishvara. When the conditions are gathered, no power can impede the creation, and in their absence, it has no power to create. If Ishvara must create despite lacking a wish, he is then under the force of something else. If he creates when he wants, then he is under the power of want. How is he Ishvara when creations are done that way? Those who assert particles as permanent creator, as well have been disproved earlier. Sankhyas assert permanent primal substance as the cause of the world, and rejecting production from permanent primal substance. Verse 127. For Sankhyas, the universal constituents, courage, particles, darkness. When abiding in balance is called primal substance, their imbalance is said to be the migrators. Illogical is it for a unity to have a threefold nature. Therefore, it does not exist. Likewise, the qualities cannot be existent, because each of them also has three aspects. And in the absence of qualities, the existence of sound and so forth become far-fetched. Moreover, it is impossible for pleasure and so forth to exist. So His Holiness finished 9th chapter. Chapter 10 is being read. Chapter 10 is dedication. Through the virtue of having composed this, a guide to Bodhisattva way of life, may all living beings come to engage in the Bodhisattva's conduct. May all beings everywhere, plagued by suffering of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. For as long as they remain in cyclic existence, may their mundane happiness never decline, and may all of them uninterruptedly receive waves of joy from bodhisattvas. May all embodied creatures who throughout the universe experience hellish realms come to enjoy the bliss of Sukhavati. May all feeble with cold find warmth, and may those oppressed with heat be cooled by the boundless waters that pour forth from the great clouds of bodhisattvas' merits. May the forest of razor-sharp leaves become a beautiful pleasure grove, and may the trees of knives and swords grow into wish-fulfilling trees. May the regions of hell become places of joy with vast and fragrant lotus pools, beautiful with the exquisite calls of wild ducks, geese, and swans. May the heaps of burning coal change into heaps of jewels. May the burning ground become a polished crystal floor, and may the mountains of crushing hells become celestial palaces of worship filled with Sugatas, Buddhas. May the rains of lava, blazing stones, and weapons from now on become rain of flowers. And may all battling with weapons from now on be a playful exchange of flowers. By the force of my virtue, may those caught in the fiery torrents of acid, their flesh eaten away, revealing their lily-white bones. obtain the bodies of celestials, and dwell with goddesses in gently flowing rivers. Why are the henchmen of Yama, the unbearable blizzards of vultures and vultures afraid? Through whose noble strength is joy brought upon us and darkness dispelled? Looking up, they behold in the firmament the radiant form of Vajrapani. Through the force of their joy, may they be free from wrongdoing and find their company, his company. When they see the lava fires of hell extinguished by a rain of falling flowers, mixed with scented water, immediately satisfied, they wonder whose work this was. In this way, may those in hell behold Padmapani. Friends, do not be afraid but quickly gather here. What need is there to flee when above us is the youthful Manjughosha to dispel our fears, the tender Bodhisattva who protects all beings, living beings, through whose might all suffering is removed and the force of joy abounds. Behold him in an enchanting palace, resounding with hymns sung by 1,000 goddesses, with the tiaras of 100 gods being offered to his lotus feet, and a rain of many flowers falling on his head, the eyes of which are moist with kindness. Upon seeing Manjughosha in this way, may those in hell cry out loud with joy. Likewise, having seen due to roots of my wholesome deeds, the cool and sweet-smelling rain falling from joyful clouds created by the Bodhisattvas, Samandabhadra and Savannivarana Vishkambini, may all beings in hell be truly happy. May all animals be freed from fear of being eaten by one another. May the hungry goats be happy as the people of the northern continent. May they be satisfied by a stream of milk pouring from the hand of the Lord Avalokiteshvara, noble Lord Avalokiteshvara, and by bathing in it, may they always be cooled. May the blind see forms, may the deaf hear sounds, may just as it was with Maya Devi, may pregnant women give birth without any pain. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food, may the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow will find joy, may the forlorn find new hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May all who are sick and ill, quickly be freed from the illness. May every disease in the world never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting one another. May all travelers find happiness everywhere they go, and without any effort, may they accomplish whatever they set out to do. May those who sail in the ships and boats obtain whatever they wish for, and having safely returned to the shore, may they joyfully reunite with their relatives and family, and may troubled wanderers who have lost their way meet with fellow travelers, and without any fear of thieves and tigers, may their going be easy without any fatigue. May those who find themselves in trackless, fearful wildernesses, the children, the aged, unprotected, those unstupefied and insane, be guarded by beneficent celestials. May beings be free from states of no leisure, and be endowed with faith, wisdom, and kindness. May food obtained in proper manner and excellent conduct, may they be mindful throughout their lives. May all beings be without want for wealth, just like the treasury of space, and without dispute or harm. May they always enjoy as they wish. May those who have little splendor come to be endowed with majesty, and may those whose bodies are worn with toil find magnificent and noble forms. May all lower life forms in the universe take rebirth in higher forms. So verses towards the end of the text. May I live and sustain, or 51 says, and until I reach the level of joyous one through the kindness of Manjughosha, may I be mindful throughout my lifetimes, and always obtain ordination. May I live and be sustained by simple common foods, and in all my lives may I find the ideal solitude of practicing Dharma. Wherever I wish to see something or even wish to ask slightest question, may I behold without any hindrance the Lord Manjughosha himself, in order to fulfill the needs of beings who reach unto the ends of space. May my way of life be just like that of Manjughosha. For as long as space endures, and for as long as living beings remain, until then may I too abide to dispel the miseries of the world. May all the pains of living creatures ripen solely upon myself, and through the might of Bodhisattva Sangha, may all beings experience happiness. May the teachings and so forth. So I have received this transmission of this book, and I have taught it many times. And using this book, you should also try to train your mind in cultivating the good heart, kindness, generosity, the bodhichitta. So we'll see you again. We'll have the Avalokiteshvara initiation tomorrow.